Hello, and thank you for watching this Employer Transaction Application ETA presentation for data confirmation. My name is Kim Schmidt, and I'm the Policy Advisor for the Employer Services Bureau, and I'm one of the Employer Liaisons for the Insurance Administration System Project. So let's get started. A little reminder of IAS as a whole. So as part of our modernization journey, ETF is partnering with Benefit Focus to implement a best practices-based, fully integrated insurance administration system known as IAS. It will launch on July 1st, 2025. My Insurance Benefits will replace our current health insurance system, My ETF Benefits MEBS, and provide a one source of data for employee information related to ETF administered benefits. All ETF administered insurance benefits will be part of the new IAS, except for long-term care insurance. This includes life insurance, income continuation insurance, supplemental dental and vision insurance, as well as health insurance. So all employers who offer one or more ETF administered insurance benefits will utilize the new insurance system. During the next step in preparing for this implementation, employers will confirm and update employee data in the employer transaction application, the ETA staging portal. This data confirmation step is essential to ensuring that employee data is complete and accurate in the system before we enter the upcoming blackout period when final system preparations will occur. So all data in the ETA portal will ultimately be visible to your employees in My Insurance Benefits and will drive insurance eligibility, enrollment, and premiums. So accuracy is crucial. So the learning objectives for this recording, for this presentation. So you received an email on Wednesday, April 2nd, regarding the need for you to validate the information you had provided on the ETA file via SharePoint for data confirmation in the last month. The validation of the information you provided will need to be done via the ETA. So during the next step in preparing for My Insurance Benefits, employers will confirm and update employee data in the employer transaction application, so the ETA staging portal. I want to call attention to this right away because please keep in mind that this is a staging environment. So this link to the staging environment is solely used to ensure your employee information that you had submitted through the ETA Excel file via SharePoint was correct and update any employee information needed. The ETA staging environment will not function the same as a real production ETA in some places. There are some key differences, such as you'll not be seeing all transactions you ever processed in real production. So you won't have to page through and search a million employees to find the person you need to update. Production ETA will have a search functionality, have a display to show you what transactions you process. So there's a couple differences. So please bear with us using the staging ETA version. I know there are issues, but no, production ETA will be different. This data confirmation step is essential to ensuring that employee data is complete and accurate in the system before we enter the upcoming blackout period when the final system preparations will occur. So we want to make sure everything, again, is accurate. It's very crucial. So what is the employer transaction application, the ETA? The employer transaction application, ETA is how I'll be referring to it, is an application that you as the employer will use to enter, update, and maintain employment and eligibility data to support insurance transactions. The ETA will have multiple validations to ensure data quality and minimize issues. Ultimately, employee data within the ETA will be transmitted to My Insurance Benefits to facilitate insurance administration transactions, including eligibility, enrollment, and invoicing. So keep in mind that employee data for all your insurance eligible employees must be entered and maintained in the ETA, even if the employee chooses not to enroll in any of the insurance benefits. So if you are a WRS employer, this means that all WRS covered employees must be entered and maintained in the ETA. Since per ETF rule, all WRS covered employees are eligible for ETF insurance benefits. If you are a non-WRS employer, all insurance eligible employees must be entered and maintained in the ETA. Once the system goes live in July, you'll use the ETA for a variety of transactions, including entering new hires, terminating employees who leave employment, changes in job status, name and address changes, annual salary updates, and other employment updates that impact insurance eligibility. So you'll learn more about this functionality during the upcoming training sessions that will be available. However, at this time, you'll only be using a subset of the ETA functionality. As I said earlier, this is a staging environment of ETA, so the focus right now is data confirmation, where you will review, confirm, and update the employee data that you've loaded into the system thus far from multiple sources. So this includes existing ETA systems, the ETA files, the Excel files you previously completed by WRS employers, and prior ETA entries made by the non-WRS employers. So during this data confirmation phase, you'll enter transactions such as new hires who have started since your original ETF file was generated, changes in job status, and updating life insurance salaries to reflect the salaries on which premiums starting July 1st will be based. The staging environment will be available until April 23rd. One of the things that I received questions on more recently is that our WRS employers was asking that if you still had to enter transactions in two separate places, and you will. So if you are a WRS participating employer, you will have to enter all the transactions that you normally do for WRS purposes that you do right now in the WRS account update application. You will have to also enter it into the ETA. They are two separate systems. So please ensure accuracy and make sure that if you enroll someone in one system, so the WRS transaction update application, you're also enrolling them in ETA and vice versa. Also, that is for terminations or any changes. So you will have to update both systems, WRS account update application, as well as the ETA if there are any changes to your employee information. So who uses the ETA? So employer users, you will need to complete the online security access agreement for IAS. So it is the ET8928I. A prerequisite, however, is that you have to first make sure that you had filled out the ET8928. So the original online access security agreement form must be filled out before you could fill out the ET8928I, because the original ET8928 provides you with an IAM ID that you need for the ET8928I. So please make sure that both forms are completed if you need access in general as well as access to the new systems. If you have any questions at all, reach out to your case managers if you're not sure if you completed the ET8928 or the ET8928I. Let us know and we'll be able to provide you with your IAM ID if you don't know what that is, or complete the forms if you know you didn't. In the future, once our systems go live and some of our older systems like MEBS is no longer going to be available, I will put the forms and combine them together. So in the future, there will be one form to complete. But for right now, please make sure that you complete both forms. And again, if you have any questions about whether or not you did, please reach out to your case managers. So how to access the ETA? So since the ETA contains sensitive employee data, employers will need to pass through the MFA authenticator to gain access. So this is the same MFA process that you used earlier when when you were completing your ETA Excel file on SharePoint. If you have not done that yet and multi-factor authentication is new to you, you can send an email to our shared email box. So the same email that sent you that initial email on April 2nd about this whole data confirmation. It's ETF SMB IAS employer setup questions with an S at etf.wi.gov. So if you have any questions or issues with the MFA, please send an email to that email address with your employer number so then we could assist you with the MFA process. But if you are able to use MFA, do not delete the authenticator once you have access to ETA, as you'll need this authenticator again in the future when you need to make employee updates in the ETA. So again, if you have any issues, please let us know. You'll use the link found in the job aid that was sent in the email on April 2nd for you. I do have it here displayed on the presentation. Your username is your IAM ID, so it's part of your last name, your first letter of your first name, and then random letters. You're going to use that same IAM ID. It's the same ID that you use to get into the current system. So the current WRS systems, you're using that IAM ID. That's going to be what you're using to get into the ETA, except you will need to make sure that you add at wisconsin.gov. So the username is going to be your IAM ID at wisconsin.gov. And then your corresponding password you use with your IAM ID. So the normal password you always use with that alphabet soup IAM ID. So part of your last name, first letter of first name, then random letters. That's the ID that you're using. Again, please keep in mind that this is a staging environment, so it does not have the full functionality of the real ETA production. So you're not going to be using all the transactions in the ETA because during data confirmation and staging, you're only going to be able to use a certain transactions that I'll go through in this recording. So just to emphasize what you are responsible for during this round 2 data confirmation process is we need you to review and confirm all of your employee information, as well as enter employee data for any new hires who've started since the initial ETA file was submitted. So we understand new hires means for the ETAs that they are not currently present on your employment grid, which I will show you, because since you submitted the initial ETA file, it's been some time since the original file came in, so we may not have any new hires, and some of those people, your employees, might have terminated since then, so you're going to have to make updates. You're going to have to enroll or add the new employees and then terminate any of the ones who shouldn't be on there. So just a reminder, please ensure that you first enroll, like these employees have already been enrolled in our legacy system, so the WRS account update applications and MEBS if applicable. So if you're offering health, you use MEBS, make sure the person you're about to add in the ETA has been enrolled in MEBS as well, because in order to add a new hire in the ETA, they must first have a member ID. So you have to make sure that they were enrolled in the WRS if you're a WRS participating employer, and in MEBS if you are a health insurance providing employer. Also to note, we understand that they are not technically new employees. Again, they're just new for the ETA since they weren't on your initial ETA Excel spreadsheet that you initially sent to us. We also want you to enter life insurance salary updates as needed to reflect the salary on which the 2025 premiums will be based. Process terminations by using the update employee transaction code. Please keep in mind that you'll also need to make sure terminations have been processed in our legacy systems again. So keep that in mind because you will need to process any changes or updates in both systems, ETA and then the WRS account update application, as well as MEBS if applicable at this point. I'm going to walk you through all this in the ETA, and you can refer to a step-by-step in the job aid on how to complete each task. Again, I understand since this is staging environment, it's missing some key functionality. I know our larger employers, I've heard your questions and the issues that you've risen with the inability to export, query, mass update your employees to ensure all your employees are correctly updated. It is a huge burden since you have to page through like a million pages to find a specific person. I apologize for this huge inconvenience. We are working on making the production ETA have more functionality, a search functionality, for example. So please understand that it's very difficult to have the resources to work on this ability for a staging environment that was only going to be used in such a short amount of time. So a suggestion to help lighten the work is if you can contact us via the shared email box, so ETF, SMB, IAS, employer setup questions at etf.wi.gov. I have the email on the last slide of this presentation as well. We can provide you with a complete copy of the ETA Excel file you had sent that we had validated. And then you could compare that data on the Excel file with your current system records, and then you could like mark any changes. You could identify it on the Excel, and then you could at least know who you were looking for and find them in the ETA to update the employee's information. You can add an employee, make sure they're enrolled in your legacy systems first, and or terminate the employee. So it is not a perfect solution. We understand that, but it is our best recommendation for our larger employers at this point. This data confirmation step is essential to ensuring that employee data is complete and accurate in the system before we enter the upcoming blackout period when final system preparations will occur. So please just make sure that all the information is accurate. So ETA screens, I'm going to walk you through the different screenshots in the first in the next few slides. Then I do hope to be able to go through a demo in our testing environment to show you how to validate the information you had submitted during the conversion process when you submitted the ETA file and walk you through the process you'll need to do through the application. So then that way you could kind of see it live. So the employer transaction application, when you click the link that is in the job aid, or if you type in the link exactly as it is on the presentation here, you're going to go through the MFA process. You're going to log in with your IAM ID. So remember, it's part of your last name, first name, random letters, so like the alphabet soup IAM ID. And then you need to make sure that you add the at wisconsin.gov. You'll be brought to the home page of the ETA where you're going to see a welcome page and the employer drop-down box. And then if you're going to just in the employer drop-down box, in the drop-down arrow, you're just going to click on your employer number and then hit select. That should be the only employer number that you see on there. When you get to the main screen, so the employer homepage, you should see a grid view of all the employees you had on the conversion file. So this gives you an entire list of everyone that you had entered on the conversion file that was on your list on the Excel file. At the bottom, you'll be able to page through if you have multiple pages, but all of your employees should have a status of MDM ready. So the employee data that you see here represents the initial data that we loaded from your ETA files for WS covered employees, or that you enter directly into the ETA yourself for our non-WS employers. Going forward during the data confirmation phase, this data will reflect additional employee entries and updates you make into the ETA. So most of your employees should be MDM ready status. So in order to view what you had entered in the Excel spreadsheet that you had sent, you could click on that edit button on the right-hand side after the MDM status. If you hit edit, an employment information pop-up box will appear. So you can review the information for an employee in each of the tabs here. So at the top, you'll see there's employee demographics, employee contact, employment. These are all the different tabs you can look through, and it's pre-filled with all the information that you had entered or the information that we have in our current systems for that employee. So you could just page through the different tabs and look through the information. So please keep in mind that for the MDM ready status transactions, so most of your transactions at this point, the edit button is really like a view button. So you could view the information, but you cannot change any employee information and save successfully. So if you need to make an update or change an employee in the MDM ready status, you'll need to click the new button and then choose update employee transaction and put in the employee's MID. You could copy the MID from the employment information grid and paste in the transaction so it's easier and you don't have to remember the member ID. So I'll show you that here. So you look through the transaction, the MDM ready transaction, you saw that, okay, you need to make a correction to this employee. So you hit save to get out because again, the edit button is like a view button for the MDM status transactions. Now you need to click the new button. So once you hit save, you're going to be taken back to the main screen. You're going to hit the new button. And what you could do, like I suggested before, is on the left-hand column, there's the ETF member ID. For that employee that you want to make an update for, you could copy that member ID so you don't have to remember the numbers. Click New, and then you could click the transaction code. You'll need to click Update Employee. That's the transaction you're going to need to update the employee information. Once you do, there's going to be a box, and I'll show you in the demo, where you will need to paste the member ID in. So you'll paste the member ID and then their employment information will pop up just like it does on the screen here. So the employment information box for that employee pops up. You go through the employee demographics, employee contact, and employment tab. So then you could update the information you need. Once you update everything though, you need to make sure that you click save at the bottom of the box to save any changes you made for that employee. If there are any errors, you will have to correct any errors that populate. There will be a validation error message at the bottom. If you scroll down, you'll see it in red, and I'll show you again in the demo. But you'll need to correct that information before you could actually hit save. So it's very important that all the employee information is correct. So any information you enter in the ETA for an existing employee will update ETF systems accordingly. So please keep that in mind. In addition, the data you enter in the ETA will appear in Benefit Place and be visible to your employees. So this data will also drive enrollment eligibility in Benefit Place. So if the data is wrong in the ETA, it'll result in incorrect enrollment eligibility for your employees as well. So it's very important that all the information is correct. Another thing that you could do for inside the ETA is terminating employees. So if you see an employee who should not be on your employment information grid, you can process a termination using the new button. So that same new button that you use to update employee information. Click new and then it'll open that employment transactions pop-up box again. And then you want to make sure that you choose the update employee just like you did before. You're going to enter in their member ID. And again, you could copy that from the first page and then paste it in the search bar, which I'll show you in the demo, and then edit the fields as needed. Make sure that you click the employment tab, that's the final tab, update all of the information that you need for this termination if you're processing a termination for your employee. And then if you scroll all the way at the bottom, you'll see there's a termination reason code and the termination date. So you have to complete both to save. And once you save, you'll get taken back to the main screen. And then this transaction will be in end of day ready status. So once it's in end of day ready status, it'll process overnight. And if everything looks good and we match everything up, for example, all of the data that you entered, tomorrow you'll see the record as MDM ready. So all of the transactions, any changes you make, process overnight. And it will change the status on the main screen. So the transaction, instead of saying end of day ready after you made the changes, the next day it'll say MDM ready. So it's the same if you're adding a new employee. So if you're adding a new employee, you'll click new. And then in the drop-down box, the employment information box will appear again. And then the first thing you'll see is a transaction code drop-down box. So when you click on the arrow again in the drop-down box, you could click add new employee. When you select the add new employee, the employment information box will change and include the information that you will need to complete. So it's blank. The employment information is blank because it's going to be, you're adding a new employee that we don't have in the ETA. So you will need to complete all the required fields. They're labeled with a red asterisk. If the field is left blank, you'll receive an error message. So there are 3 tabs again on the add new employee transaction that must be completed. So the employee demographic, employee contact, and then the employment tab. Once you enter all the required information for the employee demographics, you must click on the next tab, is the employee contact. So employee demographics, you complete, first name, last name, birth date, sex, and then the social security number. And then you're going to click the next tab up top there, which is the employee contact. Once you do, the employee contact, if you take a look, the only required fields on the employee contact is the mailing address. But please feel free to add any other information that you have for that employee. So phone numbers, emails, if you have it, feel free to enter it on the transaction. The last one is when you reach the employment tab. This is where all the information we require you will have is that red asterisk. Again, please keep that in mind. You should have received a key via the email that was sent to you on Wednesday, the April 2nd, that big email with a couple attachments. The key there provides detailed information for each of the required fields. So each field has a meaning. If you're confused about what it means, please refer to that key. Please keep in mind as well that if you are an employer that offers life insurance and or ICI, you must complete the fields asking for life insurance and or ICI information. So if you offer that benefit, you have to complete all the information regarding that benefit. I do want to mention one of the issues that I know I've been hearing recently too is that the ICI values being defaulted to 1,000, even though you are an employer that does not offer ICI. I did check with our vendor, Benefit Focus, and it is in their system requirement that an employer who offers life insurance has to have an ICI value populated regardless if the employer offers ICI or not. I know that's super inconvenient, especially when that's an error code that populates where it says like you need to remove this since you are an employer that does not offer ICI before you could save the transaction. And that's totally fine. If you're making updates and it gives you that error message, please remove the defaulted value of 1,000. That's not going to cause any issues because it's a back end thing. It's populating in the front, but I am working with our developers on hiding all the ICI related fields so that way you won't see it if you don't offer ICI. So that way the error validations don't populate and you don't have to worry about removing the ICI values to successfully save a transaction. So this is coming. I'm hoping that this change will occur this week. So do not worry, remove the ICI value if it's saying that you have to remove it before you could save the transaction. That won't cause any issues. And in the near future, if you are an employer that does not offer ICI, there won't be any ICI related fields populating for you. So again, just some things to keep in mind. If you have multiple employees, you could page through, but you could also adjust what you're seeing. So by first name, last name, there's going to be a little arrow, and I'll show you too in the demo, where you could sort by either their employer, their member ID, first name, last name, anything that you are looking for to make it easier for you to find that employee. So once you make any changes or updates, the employee's transaction will be in end of day ready status. So if you know there's an employee who you need to update information for, you can click on the edit button next to their name if the transaction status is end of day ready or rejected status. So that's the other thing. I know I mentioned multiple times that you cannot edit an MDM ready status transaction. That is correct. MDM ready status transactions can only be updated successfully by using the update employee transaction when you're clicking that new button. But if you just made a correction today, for example, or if one of your transactions is rejected, you could hit the edit button and edit to save successfully any changes you make to the end of day ready or rejected transaction status transactions. So please keep that in mind. And then any changes or updates you make will process overnight and it'll become MDM ready status tomorrow. So MDM ready just means that we received all the information. This is what we have in all of our systems. Nothing more for you to do unless you need to update something. Then remember, if it's MDM ready, you click the new button, hit update new employee, then you update. And then if it's end of day ready or rejected status transaction, you could edit by hitting the edit button. So I'm going to do a demo in our testing environment just so you can see. I'll add a new employee and show you, point out a couple things just so you know what you're looking at when you go in there yourselves. So let me see if I could share my other screen and have it successfully record still, and it is. And it looks like I am sharing my screen now, which is the employer transaction application. So this is it. Um, the thing is, if you look and I try to log in, I'm already set up with MFA, so that's why I don't go through the MFA process. But please keep in mind that once you click on the link in the job aid that was emailed to you on April 2nd, that link will take you to the ETA site, but you need to set up MFA and then you need to sign in as well. So you're going to sign in again with your IAM ID, so that part of your last name, first letter of your first name, and then random letters, so that alphabet soup at wisconsin.gov. And then you're going to put in the corresponding password, the same password you've been using with your IAM ID. And then you should be able to get into this and see the screen, the employer transaction application. When you do, you're going to select your employer number or name. And when you click on this box, you will only have who you have access to. So it'll be one employer most likely. For me, it's a little bit different because I am working at ETF, so I do have access to assist employers. So I have access to multiple employers, but I actually have a fake employer, I'm going to show you. So you choose your employer, you're going to click select. And then as you see here, I've already did some transactions, so I could kind of point out a couple things for you. I love Disney, so I have the Disney characters here. So none of this information is, PII or anything like that. These are people I made up. Fun fact, in the future, I know in staging you won't see this. It's a middle initial, but we actually upgraded it for production that the middle initial is gone and we're going to give you the transaction code so that way you could sort. So if you click next to the name, you could sort it. They're both add new employee, so it didn't do anything. But like if I wanted a first name sort, I click on first name and it'll put Jasmine first or Snow White first. Or if I want it to sort the other way, could always do it the other way. Same with the last name. Also, fun fact, you could also do it with the statuses, end of day ready. If you have a ton of end of day ready or if you have MDM ready and you want to look at all the end of day ready transactions, you could do that with the status by clicking it. So this is the screen. So you should see all of your employees here that was on your initial ETA Excel file. I only have 2, but if you have a lot, you could page through. It tells you what your total records are and you could go ahead. So remember that you can successfully edit end of day ready status transaction. So EOD means end of day ready. Snow White, I could edit her. So let's say I'm going to edit Snow White. I click edit and all of her information that I had entered when I created her shows up. So it shows me all of her information. So I'm going to say she moved. So instead of 1 Dwarf Cottage, she moved to 2 Dwarf Cottage. And that's all I needed. So I'm going to hit save. And then it's going to load. And let's see if it saves successfully. And it does. So if I go back into Snow White, like if I hit edit, I should see the change I made and there's a 2. So that works. So you could edit the end of day ready. So because these are fake people, I couldn't show you an MDM ready status. But again, it's the same. So if it's MDM ready, you could hit edit to view all the information that you had entered. But remember, if you need to make an update to MDM ready status transactions, you would have to click new, and then you would click update employee, and then you would enter their member ID. So one of the things that I had mentioned in the slides is if you can't remember the member ID or you don't have the social security number handy, you could always go like this and just copy the member ID. Click new. We're going to do update employee. You could paste and then hit the magnifying glass. Now, keep in mind, nothing's going to show up the business validation. So this is a really good way to show you an error message. It says no employee found, which makes total sense because I just created her. So I just created Jasmine or Snow White. They're in end of day ready. That means that they did not go to MDM ready, which means they're not in our current system. So of course, when I do a search, I can't find them. So that makes sense. So one of the error messages that you could receive. So keep in mind again, if you are trying to update an employee or if you're adding a new employee, you have to head first enter their information and enroll them in our current system. So the WS account update application as well as MEBS for right now since MEBS is still available. So they all need to be enrolled there or terminated there before you could do anything with the ETA. And this is just for data confirmation. So this is for staging. Obviously, when we go live, things are going to be different. You're going to be able to add new employee, terminate them without having to worry about MEBS, for example. But you still will have to use the WS account update application. That still is going to happen in production. So once we go live and ETA is available to use, you still have to use 2 systems to update both information if you are a WS participating employer. So let's see, I'm going to show you how to add a new employee. So if you click new and let's say, okay, you reviewed everything on your grid, you see that someone's missing. So you actually need to enroll them. So first step, you enroll them in all of our legacy systems. So WS account update application and MEBs are already in there. So now you just need to enroll them in the ETA. So you're gonna click the transaction code and you're gonna add new employee. Once you add new employee, again, you're entering all the same information that you enter to enroll someone. So let's say we're gonna enroll Belle. And let's say I'm just making all their birthdays January 1st. And then I have to make up a social. Is that enough numbers? Um, and then, you'll have to remember complete all of the red asterisk ones. So oops, Cottage, Madison, drop down box for the United States, drop down box for Wisconsin, postal code. Then you're going to hit the next tab here, employee mint information. The employee unit number, that's your, unless you're an employer that has multiple units, and if you are, you should know who you are because we went through an entire process where we sent out a survey and had asked you how you wanted it broke down. But if you're an employer, most employers will just have one number there in the drop-down box. So just click on that number. That's going to be your unit number. Subunits, it's the same. It's just 00 in the end. Are they WS eligible? We're going to say yes. Employee type code, local employee, employment status code, that we're going to make them full-time. Employment category, so we'll make them general. And keep in mind that 43 category, jailer, I know I had that question when I did this presentation live. It is available for you to choose. Full-time equivalency, we'll say it's 1. Payment frequency, now keep in mind, just like we had mentioned in the key that was sent to you as an attachment on the April 2nd email, local employers are choosing monthly. The payment frequency code is really important for our state agencies. So it doesn't really apply to locals, but it's a required field to complete. So hire date, let's say 401. This rehire, you just have to let us know if they were rehired. If they're not, just put not a rehire. Most of our employers have that. We do mention that in the key as well, that they're not like a rehired annuitant. They're not a rehire. They're a new employee that you hired. And then let's see. That's all the red asterisk that I have. I'm pretty sure that this employer I had set up, the pseudo fake employer, has ICI, but I'm going to actually show you. I'm going to hit save. So if you are an employer that offers ICI or life insurance as a benefit, for example, if you try to submit a transaction on the ETA without completing the required fields for those benefits, it will give you an error message at the bottom here. Life insurance amount is required, ICI is required because you are an employer that offers life or ICI. So we'll just put, there you go. And then it will tell you too, you will need a corresponding effective date as well. And we'll just put same date as hire date, or, day later is fine too. This person isn't real. And then we'll just do that here. And I'll click save and oh, okay. So then the medical employer contribution wait period code. Now, this also is an employer that offers health insurance. So this also is mentioned in the key. If you offer health insurance, you need to choose a value for your wait period. So we'll say it's 1, for example, for this employer. So Again, the ETA is set up to know what benefits you as the employer offer. So any of the fields that are required for that specific benefit will error if you do not complete it. So just keep that in mind. You'll get a business validation message at the bottom. It will also give you that exclamation point where you need to complete that field. So I'm going to hit save and see if I fixed everything. And perfect, I did. So you see Bell got added on here as an end of day ready transaction. So that means overnight, this transaction will process. If everything's successful, it'll go to MDM ready. And then Bell's good to go unless I need to make any corrections, which again, if you do, you need to go back into the ETA and update or correct. So if Bell moved or something like that, you will need to make sure that you correct her information. Another thing to keep in mind again is you can edit end of day ready transactions directly by hitting the edit button. So I just entered Belle's information. She now lives at 3 French Cottage. We're going to hit save. I made the update and then it saved. And then if I really wanted to see it and make sure that it saved, you could see it changed from a 1 to 3. It saved that information. I know there's a delete button here, and that's like if you made a mistake, you could delete any of the transactions that are in end of ready because that means they never processed yet. But if you delete the MDM ready ones, it's just going to repopulate because you can't delete something that's already entered into our systems. So let's say I did a mistake. I entered information for Bell, but then she called me 10 minutes later and was like, I'm not going to work for you anymore. And you're like, oh, okay. So I just entered you. But what you could do now is just delete it because it didn't process. So you could delete Bell's transaction. And it says, are you sure you want to delete this record? You'll hit yes because Bell said she's not going to come work for you. And then Bell will be off your grid. And then she won't process overnight and become MDM ready. So something to keep in mind. Again, if you have any status that's rejected too, you could always edit directly by hitting the edit button. But if it's MDM ready, you have to hit new and then you have to hit update employee. Please keep that in mind. The other thing I did want to show you is that if you needed to terminate an employee. Now remember, if you want to terminate employee, that's MDM ready status. You need to do the same thing. You need to click new and update employee, put in their employee member ID or social security. And again, you could copy and paste it directly from the grid. And then once you do, and this is just an example, because like I said, I don't have any MDM ready transactions because these people aren't real and this is a testing environment, so it's not going to process to MDM ready. But let's pretend that this is a new update employee transaction, okay? You're going to click employment tab, just like I showed you in the screenshots in the presentation. You'll update what you need to do. So let's say they're terminating, you want to update the salary to make sure that you got their last salary. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, um, you'll see a termination transaction like the screenshot. So I think the screenshot will be your best bet to see the termination because as you can see, it's not showing up here because this is not an update employee transaction. It's an add new employee transaction because again, the transaction I had is not MDM ready because this is the testing environment, but please refer to the screenshots on the presentation. So that's the employer transaction application. That's just a couple things I wanted to point out and answer any of the questions that I know came through and identify those. Let me stop sharing. Let me share my presentation again here so we could get to the last slides here. So I did the demo and testing environment. So you saw those different transactions. Then we're just going to do a quick recap. So please keep in mind that anyone you are enrolling or terminating in ETA must also be enrolled, terminated in our current system, so WS account update application and MEBS. The ETA is a staging environment right now for your data confirmation, so there are some transactions that you won't be processing in ETA staging. So you're going to be reviewing your employee information ETA. So after processing a transaction as well, you may see two rows for that same employee. So the original old transaction that was there, that was that MDM ready transaction, and then the new one you just processed, that should say EOD, so end of day ready. There will be two transactions displayed until the new transaction you entered is processed overnight. And then the next day you'll see one MDM ready transaction for that employee with the updates you made. So please just keep that in mind. I know it might be a little confusing, but again, it's a staging environment, so you're seeing both transactions. MDM ready status transaction, if you need to make any updates, you have to click that new button and use the update employee transaction. If the transaction is in end of day ready or rejected status, you could edit directly by hitting the edit button. Make sure that you're processing new employees for anyone who's missing and terminating any employees who should not be on your grid by updating employee transactions. So by clicking the new button, hitting update new employee, and then put in their employee member ID or social, their employee information will populate just like I showed you in the presentation screenshots, and then you could terminate them. And make sure to keep all your information updated. So in addition to reviewing the employee data that currently exists in the ETA and making any necessary updates, be sure to keep this information updated during the remainder of the data confirmation period. So if anything changes, you will need to make any updates. We will provide you with the how in the next couple weeks for updating going forward before July. So again, it's only April, so we know that there's going to be more updates that are needed. We'll give you a way to do that coming up soon, and we'll let you know. So right now, initially, you're going to be in the ETA staging environment to make your updates. In the future, which is soon, we'll give you more information on how to keep making updates until we go live, and then you're going to be using ETA as normal. So please keep an eye out for any gov.delivery email messages. So I know that was a lot. Thank you so much for listening to this recording. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Email us with the email address etfsmbis employer setup questions at etf.wi.gov. We're answering questions as soon as we can. Please keep in mind we have over 900 local employers and you're all in the ETA. So if there are all these different issues and you're emailing, we're trying to get to the emails and responding as timely as possible. But it is, like I said, I'm one of the employer liaisons and there's one other person. So we're responding as quickly as we can. So please give us some time to respond if you haven't heard. We appreciate your patience and we are going to help you as much as we can. So if you have any questions, please send an email to that email box because we are the ones working on the IAS project to help employers. So please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.